Hello, I am an addict named Bill. Welcome back to our tradition study for groups. Tradition 4. Each group should be autonomous, except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. This tradition addresses itself to our groups, and it is important that we maintain that focus as we explore other applications of its principles. Tradition 4 tells us, each group should be autonomous, except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. The word should be imply that this is a goal rather than an absolute. Sometimes a group may accept assistance and support from other groups or from NA service bodies. There are times when a local community steps in to support a struggling group for a good reason. For example, established groups occasionally sponsor or support groups that are geographically isolated or that meet particular needs. In these cases, it's helpful to consider carefully the nature of such help and to set some goals to help the group achieve full autonomy and self-support. While addiction and recovery are common bonds we all share, in some ways we are very different. Some of our differences are obvious, and some less so. However, some of our differences have much more meaning in the outside world than in NA. Still, they affect the ways we see and experience our relationships with each other. Autonomy means that our groups can shape themselves to be attractive in whatever way they see fit, as long as the primary purpose is to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. There are 6 points based on our traditions listed in the group booklet to help us understand our bottom lines for what constitutes a group. All members of a group are drug addicts, and all drug addicts are eligible for membership. As a group, they are self-supporting. As a group, their single goal is to help drug addicts recover through application of the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. As a group, they have no affiliation outside of Narcotics Anonymous. As a group, they express no opinion on outside issues. As a group, their public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. Even considering these 6 points, each group has a lot of freedom to find ways to fulfill the primary purpose that suit the collective conscience of the group. None of our traditions stands alone. A good test of whether an issue or decision affects other groups or NA as a whole is to consider carefully whether our decision is consistent with the guidance offered by our other traditions. As an example, the desire to support fellow members with a common need may inspire us to create a specialized meeting format. We must remember that the 6th tradition cautions against endorsements and affiliation, and that the 10th tradition warns about the dangers of expressing opinions on outside issues. We could not create a meeting format directed at addicts with particular religious or philosophical views, or a group meant for NA members who are also part of another organization outside of NA, or a group that reads material other than NA literature. Doing so would step beyond the autonomy afforded by tradition. 4. By endorsing or affiliating with those outside groups, interests, or beliefs. Autonomy offers us the freedom to try new things, and we demonstrate courage when we make new efforts to better carry our message. Seeking guidance from the other 11 traditions when we try new things allows us to do so without compromising our principles. NA is very different from place to place. Within some NA communities, meetings are very similar to each other. Other communities have a lot of diversity in their formats and styles. It can sometimes be difficult for members to distinguish between our traditions, which are the guidelines that keep us alive and free, and our local customs. This is especially true when those local customs are repeated at every meeting. This may be as simple as the way we close the meeting, or as complicated as suggestions or announcements that are uniform across a region. We may be surprised to go to a new place and find that meetings can operate so differently and still work. Although local NA customs may make the fellowship more or less attractive to us, we want to carefully consider decisions to change them. When we make a decision to do something differently, we should do so for a reason. Our efforts should be aimed at helping addicts pay more attention to the message if we present it differently, rather than seeking attention for ourselves. Our groups, our neighboring communities, and our fellowship as a whole are joined together in unity. The connections from one to the next, like strands of a spider web, are so fine they may go unseen, but they are also strong and flexible. Those connections are our shared principles. And when we make good use of those principles in our exercise of autonomy, we can be sure that we are strengthening NA as a whole. Here are the group inventory questions for Tradition 4. These questions offer ways to begin or continue group inventory or discussions focused on this tradition. Feel free to comment with your input so we can get the group dialogue going. That's actually the purpose of me reading all these questions. 1. How does creative freedom benefit NA groups? Narcotics Anonymous as a whole? 2. As groups, how do we know what affects other groups? How do our group decisions affect the fellowship as a whole? 3. What is the importance of communication in group conscience? How do we maintain lines of communication and awareness of the needs of NA as a whole? 4. How are our group's efforts to express personality directly related to carrying the message? Do we ever try to be different for the sake of being different? 5. How can we exercise group autonomy in a way that contributes to NA unity? 6. When could our exercise of autonomy have a negative effect on other groups or NA as a whole? 7. NA service bodies are directly responsible to the NA groups. Keeping autonomy in mind, what responsibilities or obligations do NA groups have to NA service bodies? 8. NA service bodies are directly responsible to the NA groups. Keeping autonomy in mind, what responsibilities or obligations do NA groups have to NA service bodies? Why is the image of NA so important in the community? What part does each group play in the overall reputation of NA as a whole? How does our group contribute to public perceptions? 9. How does this tradition help us understand anonymity? How does anonymity help us understand this tradition? How do we practice anonymity in terms of this tradition? 10. Discuss any bridges between this tradition and other traditions. What do these bridges teach us about our group? 11. What more can we do to bring the principles of this tradition into our group efforts? What could we do differently to better fulfill our primary purpose? Tradition 4 emphasizes the autonomy of NA groups while ensuring that their choices do not negatively affect other groups or Narcotics Anonymous as a whole. Autonomy allows groups the freedom to adapt their formats and approaches to better convey their message, highlighting their unique identities. However, this freedom comes with the responsibility to maintain communication and awareness of the broader fellowship. Groups must avoid endorsing outside organizations or issues, thus preserving unity within NA. The tradition underscores the importance of self-support within groups and the shared principles that bind them together, encouraging members to explore creative methods to fulfill their primary purpose of helping fellow addicts. Ultimately, thoughtful adherence to Tradition 4 strengthens NA collectively. Keep coming back. This program works.